This quick public service announcement is brought to you by Valve and the CDC. In an effort to keep large groups out of enclosed spaces, Valve and the CDC have decided to temporarily cancel Junction. We know that for many of you this will be hard, but until the ban is raised, try and remember the good times on Junction. Like, remember the time you couldn't get past that one engineer because they held down the most choky point on last? Or what about that scout that figured out that glitch spot right above point B and made you think that the map was just broken for an entire 8.5 minutes? Or what about that brand new pyro main that just found out what a flog was and abused every single hallway he could find with it? Ah, Junction. We'll miss you. But until further notice, you can spread the awareness by using the hashtag JunctionIsCancelled until the ban is lifted. And don't worry everyone, soon enough, your favorite map will be returning to a matchmaking cycle near you.
Ha! Junction sucks! Ain't nobody trying to play that shit.
Alright, so this is just something I feel like publicly needs to be laid to rest at this point, because I feel like it's bringing down the entire community. I'm seeing it on Discord, I'm seeing it in game, and I'm even seeing it in my own video comments, which, to be honest, can be pretty random when it's like a video about maps or something. But what I'm about to lay to rest anyways is the idea that Team Fortress 2 is dying. Because to be frank, it's not. So first let's start with what caused this new mass hysteria in the community. A few months back now, VNN posted a video you guys may have heard of called Sad Team Fortress 2 News, TF2 is on hold. Now had you been watching Tyler's channel for a little bit, you would have already known that TF2 was on hold anyways because Valve staff has been shifting its focus more towards its new VR projects. So really the only updated news Tyler was even sharing in this video was that some random Valve employee stated there's hardly anyone working on TF2 anymore. Some other dude from Valve was like, there's lots of us working on the new Half-Life because it's almost out. Duh. And then lastly, that we were supposed to get some new promotional items soon, which, to be honest, we still have no idea what that even is. Maybe it's related to Half-Life? We don't know. But anyways, that was basically it. And at this point in the video, I don't know if Tyler looked at it and said, ah man, this is gonna be too short, I gotta fill the rest of it with something, but he basically took the rest of the video at that point and just added depression. Like, the entire rest of the video was just, TF2 is dying, there's no more major updates, the numbers aren't real, the devs are gone, your game's dead, lol. Now, maybe these weren't the exact intentions Tyler had, maybe this was just his first time hearing of Teamwork.tf, so he found this to be very bad news. However, Teamwork.tf has actually been around for years, and it turns out, Tyler didn't quite have all of his information right. Now, I'm just gonna go ahead and pause this conversation for a second to say, I am not trying to attack Tyler McVicker here. He puts out great content, and a lot of the time it's very valid and useful information for the community. But unfortunately, some of the times to gather this info, he is going off of rumors and hearsay. And in this case, it was just that. So let me go ahead and explain why. Now, I had heard about Teamwork TF like a year ago, and really I just dismissed it almost immediately because it didn't make sense to me that there would be such a wide divide between numbers reported off of one fan-made site and numbers reported off an actual Steam-supported website. But then this recent commotion came about, and I decided to give it another look. So firstly, if you've gone to SteamCharts.com recently, you'd have seen that the numbers have been hitting around 60 to 70,000 players a day, which is pretty good to be honest. However, if you go and visit Teamwork.tf, a website that reports how many people are currently playing in every Valve official and community server, you'd find that the number reported is quite different. Now, one of the first things that caught my eye here is that even if you were to add up all the players and all the bots reported off Teamwork.tf, it still wouldn't even come close to the numbers reported from SteamCharts.com. I mean, I'm no math genius here or anything, but I'm pretty sure 11,000 plus like 3,000 bots doesn't equal 70,000. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's almost a 60,000 player difference. And to me, that just made no sense. Like, I understand a company being off by, say, a few numbers maybe, but 60,000? 60,000? Like, imagine that working anywhere else.
Hey, Ty. The lady at table 2 would like some more ice cubes. Give her 2 for me, alright? What was that, boss? 60,000 cubes? Well, I guess the customer's always right.
So, in response to this, I basically made this tweet asking how it could even be possible for these two websites to be this drastically off from one another. And the tweet received some pretty good attention, which, after a while, actually led to a response from Teamwork.tf's main developer, Makamoto. And Makamoto left us with two things. One, that Teamwork.tf can only count bots created by the game, not any Steam accounts controlled by bots. But more interesting than that was the link he gave us to clear up the difference between how Steam charts gather their numbers and how Teamwork.tf does it. And this is the crucial info that many of you didn't know, and to be honest, Tyler McVicker probably didn't know it either. So in this link, you'd find a Reddit quote from a player by the name of TF2, who writes this: "I think what he means, and what's true, is that Valve gathers every player who played during that hour and counts it, like from 8 PM to 8:59 PM and 59 seconds. Teamwork.tf, however, counts it at an instant, as in how many people were playing at 8 PM exactly. So in other words, Teamwork.tf is unique in that it counts the actual players online in that very moment, while SteamCharts.com counts the collective amounts of players that have played in the last entire hour. And this isn't just for Team Fortress 2, by the way. This is for any game that's on SteamCharts.com, and you can find proof for this on their About page. This actually makes Teamwork.tf not just unique to Team Fortress 2, but really to most any game on Steam, because honestly, you'd have trouble finding any other website like it for any other popular games such as Dota 2, PUBG, or Counter-Strike. Anyways, the reason why both player counts can technically coexist then is that if you were going to count up all the players that were shown playing in those exact moments on Teamwork.tf, and then add them up in the span of an hour, you would actually get a number closer to what SteamCharts.com shows. Not to mention the fact that Makamoto himself admits that Teamwork.tf does not count the amount of players that are just idle, or doing something else in the menu screen, such as waiting for a game to load. Now I was hoping that Teamwork.tf did have some hourly gatherings too, like Steam charts, so that we could compare and find a more definitive number, but it turns out that unfortunately, Teamwork.tf just doesn't run the same way Steam charts does. For instance, one major difference is that Teamwork.tf goes off of Steam usernames, while SteamCharts.com goes off of actual Steam IDs. This alone could skew the data enough that we'd possibly never know what the real numbers could be. But regardless, if we are to believe that these two player counts do potentially coexist, then really the numbers we ought to be looking at are right where we'd originally thought, on SteamCharts.com. Now that we know that we're looking at hourly counts of the game, we wouldn't have to question why the numbers between sites are so different. And from there, all we need to do then is compare TF2's metrics now to any other time since the game's been out. And the truth you'll find is, TF2 is actually doing better right now than it has debatably in years. In fact, if you actually look through the average player count from the game's last couple months and then continue scrolling, you'll notice that this is actually the first time we've touched a monthly average of 60,000 players in 5 years. Not just that, but we even hit close to our peak records again just this last November and December at 103,000 players. That doesn't sound like dying to me. But then I know some of you will still make the argument, well, Joey, but what about the fact that we haven't really had a major update in more than 2 years? And, well, I've got some good news there as well. So let me just remind you guys some things that Tyler McVicker had already been saying right before he released the video that made TF2 sound like it was dying. In just March of last year in his video Team Fortress 2 Update News, Tyler had already said that a consistent amount of 15 people had been working on the game around this time, and that a major update had already been in the works since early 2018. So that essentially tells us that the team had already been working on something big for over a year. Then in a later video titled Team Fortress 2 New Update, Future Content, Tyler spoke of how tours were being given out through Valve's offices, and varying numbers of staff were still seen working on TF2, going anywhere from 3 to 18 people this time. And that was only just this last September. So, putting that all together, what you're trying to tell me is that a major update was in the works since early 2018, that some consistent amount of staff was working on it even through the production of Valve's VR headset, and that just because a few more developers left to work on Half-Life Alyx, a game that, by the way, people have been waiting 16 years for, that Team Fortress is now dead and will never have a major update again? I'm gonna go ahead and say, I'm just not buying into that yet. To me, it honestly sounds like they had something major in production, but this new VR thing happened, some major games had to be worked on, and now a lot of them are probably just wrapped up working on one of possibly their biggest titles ever. But that doesn't mean it's the end of Team Fortress 2 at all. The evidence actually speaks quite the total opposite. Our numbers have been increasing, TF2 still sits in Steam's top 10 games of all time 12 years later, and Valve still makes a ridiculous amount of money off of it every single month. In fact, if you're curious just how much money Valve makes off unboxings alone, you should check out my buddy Cosmic Afro's video, because he really goes in depth on it and the numbers might surprise you. But to wrap this all up, our game's not dying, you can stop being depressed about it now, and once this new Half-Life game is released literally by the end of this month, we can all likely look forward to seeing the TF2 team return to a major update that they've just left on hold. But anyways, I hope you guys liked this video, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and until next time, later. Oh yeah, And if you guys would like for me to discuss next why Valve shouldn't be upset at the community for how poorly the Jungle Inferno update did, like Tyler rumored, let me know as well, cause believe me, I could say a thing or two about why that went so, yeah.